My name's Emily. I'm 19 and I work overnight shifts at a big box store called Shoptime just outside a tiny town named Millersfield in Georgia. You've probably never heard of it. Most people haven't. The place has a population smaller than my high school. And if you blink while driving down Main Street, you'll miss the whole thing. It's the fall of 2017, and back then Shoptime was open 24/7. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're working the graveyard shift in the middle of nowhere, that open all-night thing starts to feel off. Like the building itself shouldn't be awake. Not when the rest of the world's dead silent. Because I wasn't in school full-time, my manager Rhonda gave me a lot of overnight hours. She said I was dependable, but really I think it was just easier to schedule people like me at night when they didn't want to deal with the weirdos. There were usually only 4 or 5 of us working past midnight. A few stalkers like me, one person at the register up front, and a security guard who mostly stayed in the office watching cameras. The store felt massive and hollow after dark. Too many lights, too many empty aisles, and way too much silence. This one night started like any other. My shift was from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I was assigned to the clothing department. I had my earbuds in, folding jeans in the men's section, listening to a true crime podcast to keep me company. The store was quiet except for the occasional squeaky wheel from someone's cart echoing a few aisles over. We still got a few late-night shoppers, usually truckers or night owls, grabbing snacks. Around 11:30 p.m., a guy walked into my section. Nothing seemed strange at first. He looked about mid-30s, wearing a gray hoodie and worn-out jeans. He smiled when he saw me and asked if we had a pair of jeans in a different waist size. I checked quickly, told him what we had out was all there was, and he nodded politely before walking off. I didn't think much of it at first. A little while later, the store started feeling emptier. You know that weird feeling when you realize you haven't seen or heard anyone in way too long? That creeping kind of quiet that doesn't feel natural? I looked around and didn't spot a single person. No coworkers, no customers. Just endless aisles stretching in every direction, all lit up and buzzing faintly from the fluorescent lights overhead. Around 1 a.m., I moved over to the home appliances section, pushing a cart full of toaster ovens and coffee makers. That's when I noticed him again. The same man from earlier, the one who asked about the jeans. He was standing at the end of the next aisle over, peeking through the shelves. Not looking at the items as looking at me. The second our eyes met, he turned away and walked off. Now, okay, maybe he was just passing through. Maybe I was being paranoid. But I'd worked enough nights to know that no one, and I mean no one, browses a Walmart-sized store for 2 hours without buying anything. Something about the way he moved. Slow, steady, like he was always just one aisle over. It gave me chills. I finished restocking that aisle faster than I ever had before and rolled my empty cart back to the stockroom. Once I was back there, surrounded by towering boxes and humming vending machines, I let myself breathe. For a few minutes, I just sat in the break room, scrolling through my phone, trying to shake the feeling that someone had been watching me longer than I realized. After a bit, I figured I should get back to work, but I decided to switch things up. Instead of heading back to the appliance section, I moved to groceries, thinking maybe it'd help me calm down. The walk-in dairy cooler needed stocking, and it was colder but quieter. Or so I thought. I filled up some crates with milk jugs, yogurts, butter, and eggs. I had to keep checking the expiration dates, so it took time. The cooler was loud. Those industrial fridges sound like jet engines sometimes, and I liked it that way. It meant I didn't have to hear my own thoughts, but suddenly, over the roar of the machines, the heavy metal door behind me slammed open. I jumped so hard I almost dropped a crate of milk. I quickly ducked behind a tall stack of boxes and peeked through a small gap. And there he was, the man in the gray hoodie, just standing there in the middle of the cooler like he belonged there. He wasn't shivering. He wasn't looking for anything. He was scanning the space, looking for me. My heart was pounding so loud I swore he could hear it. I crouched down low and slid behind a shelf, hiding behind a huge box full of eggs. I pulled it close, blocking myself in. I didn't move. I barely breathed. The cooler was so loud and he wasn't saying a word. Just walking, slowly, methodically. I could hear the crunch of his boots on the gritty concrete floor. Why would a customer be in the dairy cooler? That part of the store was clearly marked employees only. No one ever wandered in by accident. The handle was stiff. The sign was big and the cold hit you like a slap in the face the moment you opened the door. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 15. Every second stretched out forever. I kept telling myself, he'll leave. He'll leave. He'll get bored and walk out. But then, I looked up. He was standing right over the box staring down at me. Smiling, not a friendly smile. A wide, cold grin that didn't touch his eyes. I screamed, loud and panicked, and he lunged forward, reaching for my face. He tried to cover my mouth with his hand, but I jerked away and shoved the box of eggs straight into him. Dozens of them smashed on the floor, slick and slimy, and he slipped back just a little. That was all I needed. I ran. I didn't stop to think, didn't stop to look back. I bolted out of the cooler, through the back hallway, and into the store. My lungs were on fire, and I was practically sobbing by the time I found someone. It was Dylan, a fellow stalker I barely knew, but who looked at me like I'd just escaped a fire. I tried to explain what happened, words tumbling out of my mouth too fast, and right then, like some messed up movie scene, the man walked up to us, calm as ever. "I'm from corporate," he said with this fake casual smile, "just doing a surprise inspection. Wanted to make sure she wasn't goofing off in the cooler." Dylan looked confused but kind of nodded like he was trying to process it. I wasn't buying it for a second. I asked him, "Then why were you trying to cover my mouth?" He paused just a beat too long and then said, "I didn't want her to cause a scene." Then, without waiting for another word, he told me to get back to appliances and started speed walking toward the front of the store. I shouted after him, "What's your name?" "Tyler," he called back. That was it. He vanished down an aisle and we never saw him again. The next morning I called my manager, Rachel. I asked if anyone named Tyler from corporate was supposed to be there last night. She got real quiet for a moment before saying, "Absolutely not. Corporate doesn't show up in the middle of the night. That's not a thing. They checked the cameras. What they found was enough to give everyone chills." The man had been in the store since 10:30 p.m., walking aisle to aisle, circling back to wherever I was. He never picked up a single item. He spent over 3 hours just watching me. They filed a police report. Cops came by and took statements, but the guy was long gone. They had no clue who he was. I told Rachel I couldn't work overnights anymore, and thankfully she didn't argue. I still work at shop time sometimes, during the day with people around. But even then, I'm always looking over my shoulder. I've learned something since that night. The scariest thing isn't ghosts or monsters or things you hear in horror movies. It's real people, hiding in plain sight, watching you, waiting for the moment you're alone. Have you ever walked into a store and feel like something's just off? Like there's someone in there who doesn't belong, who gives you that gut feeling that something isn't right? I'm not talking about someone wearing pajamas or acting goofy. I mean the kind of person who gives you that cold, crawling feeling on the back of your neck. For me, that place has always been Creekside Market. It's just a local big box store in our town of Hollow Springs. The kind that stays open way too late and attracts all sorts of characters. And yeah, you'll see your fair share of weirdos. Folks arguing with the self-checkout machines or pushing carts with nothing but beef jerky and motor oil. But what happened to me there last year, that wasn't just weird. It was straight up terrifying. It was the night before Black Friday. The store was staying open until midnight for early shoppers, and I figured I'd head over around 10:30 to try and snag a deal on a laptop I'd been eyeing for months. The ad said they'd have limited stock, and sure enough, when I got to the electronics aisle, there was only one left on the shelf. I grabbed it right away, feeling like I'd just won a small lottery. But as soon as I turned around, I noticed him. This enormous guy standing at the end of the aisle. He was hard to miss. Tall, filthy, greasy hair hanging in strings around his face. His clothes looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks, maybe months. There was this thick, sour stench in the air when he got closer, like sweat and rot and something else I couldn't place. He stared right at me, not at the laptop, not around the store, just straight into my eyes, and said real slow, "I need that." I froze. This was the last one, I told him, trying to sound polite but firm. Sorry. His face twisted and something in his expression went dark. He took a step forward. I said, I need it. You don't understand. I have to have it. There was a flicker in his eyes and something wild and unstable. My chest tightened. I didn't say anything else. I just turned and walked fast toward the checkout. He didn't follow immediately, but I could hear him muttering behind me. Muttering words I couldn't make out. Low, raspy, frantic. As I stood in line, he shouted something across the store. Loud, angry. Something about how I didn't know what I was doing. A few other customers chuckled awkwardly. One woman behind me whispered, "Don't worry about him, Creekside's full of nuts tonight." I tried to laugh, but my hands were shaking. I got out of there fast. Drove straight home. It was late, close to midnight. The rest of the house was dark and quiet. Mom and my younger cousin Emma were already asleep upstairs. My dad wasn't home. He travels a lot for work, so it was just us that weekend. I took the laptop box out to the back porch to unbox it. Our yard backs up to a small patch of woods. It's usually peaceful, just crickets and rustling leaves. But that night something felt off, like the trees were holding their breath. As I opened the laptop, the motion sensor light on the side of the house clicked on. Just a floodlight, the kind that turns on if something moves nearby. It happens sometimes. We've got deer, raccoons, the occasional stray cat. Still, I felt something cold crawl up my spine. I stood, walked to the edge of the porch, and peered toward the side yard. Nothing, just shadows and silence. Still, I went back inside and locked the door behind me. About 10 minutes later, I was in the living room finishing the laptop setup when I heard it, a loud car alarm. I recognized it immediately, my old Honda Civic. I ran to the window and looked out. My car was blinking, horn blaring in the driveway. I grabbed the keys from upstairs and tried pressing the panic button to turn it off. Nothing. I stepped out onto the porch and clicked it again. The alarm finally stopped, but something else caught my eye. There was a car idling on the street, a dark beat-up sedan, not one I recognized. It was parked just a few houses down, engine running, headlights off. No one in our neighborhood ever parked on the street. We all had driveways. And something about that car, the way it just sat there in the dark, it made my stomach twist, and then I saw it. There was someone sitting in the driver's seat. I couldn't make out his face, but I swear I could feel his eyes on me. I bolted back inside and locked the door. My hands were shaking as I rushed to my aunt's room. She's the one who takes care of us when my dad's away. "Aunt Sarah," I whispered, "there's someone outside." "I think they followed me from Creekside." She sat up immediately. She's usually calm about things, but this time I could see the worry in her eyes. She followed me downstairs and looked through the peephole in the front door. Then she gasped. A sharp, real terrified gasp. I looked too. The man from the store was standing on our front porch. Up close, he looked even worse. His face was pale and dirty, eyes sunken and bloodshot. He wasn't just big, but he was heavy, like every step he took was slow and loud. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His mouth was slightly open, and I swear he was whispering something under his breath over and over again. "I told you, I told you, I told you." He reached for the doorknob and began turning it. Slowly at first, then harder when it didn't budge. Then he started banging, slamming his fists against the door. Emma came out of her room, rubbing her eyes. "What's going on?" "Go upstairs," I shouted louder than I meant to. "Now." She ran, and Aunt Sarah grabbed her phone, calling 911. As she spoke to the dispatcher, the banging stopped. Everything went silent. No movement, no voice. Nothing but Aunt Sarah's voice shaking as she gave our address. Then came the sound that still haunts me. Glass shattering. It came from the den. One of the back windows had been broken. We all screamed. I told Aunt Sarah to take Emma and go upstairs, then I ran and slammed the den door shut and locked it from the inside. I stood there, back against the door, waiting for it to shake. Waiting for the man to throw himself at it. But nothing happened. For a few minutes, there was no sound at all. Just silence. Thick, heavy silence, and then sirens. A single cop car screeched up to the curb. I ran out to meet them, waving my arms. 2 officers jumped out and I led them straight to the den. One stayed with me while the other went in, flashlight drawn. He didn't even get halfway into the room before he called out, "Found him!" The man was curled up behind the couch, crouched like some kind of animal. His eyes were wide and he was whispering again, just like before. I told him, he took it. I need it, they dragged him out. He fought hard, screaming and thrashing. As they cuffed him, he turned and locked eyes with me. "I'll find you again," he growled. "I don't forget. You're the one." Even the cops looked shaken. One of them said he'd seen a lot, but this guy, he was on something. Or maybe just gone mentally. Either way, he was dangerous. They took him away, and the officer assured us he wouldn't be getting out anytime soon. They said we were lucky if we hadn't called when we did. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. And now I can't walk into a big box store without checking every aisle twice. I keep an eye on every car parked near mine. I don't ignore my gut anymore. Because sometimes the weird guy at the store, he's not just weird, he's watching. He's waiting. And sometimes he follows you home. Have you ever worked a night shift? Like the kind where the whole building feels too big and too quiet, and every little sound makes your heart skip? That's what it was like when I was pulling weekend overnights at a place called Evermart in the town of Red Pines. This was back in the fall of 2018. I was 22, fresh out of high school with no college plans. Just trying to help my older cousin Dean pay rent. It wasn't my dream job, obviously. Stocking shelves, dragging pallets, signing for late deliveries. It was just what we had to do to get by. Dean got me the gig. We didn't deal with customers or anything because the place closed at 10 p.m. and reopened at 7 a.m. So overnight it was just us and the shelves. It was quiet. Too quiet sometimes. Usually it was just 3 of us there. Me, Dean, and a guy named Miguel. We'd clock in at 11 p.m., grab our assignments, and get to work. No security guards. No cameras we could check. Just a manager who never showed face after dark. The night I'm about to tell you about started like any other. October 13th, a Saturday. I remember it because it was the night everything changed for me. It was maybe around 2:30 in the morning. I was in the toy aisle, restocking board games and action figures, trying not to fall asleep on my feet. Dean was somewhere in the home goods section and Miguel was back in receiving. We'd all split up for our tasks. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw someone walk past the end of the aisle. At first, I figured it was Dean, but then I noticed something weird. The person was wearing all black, like head to toe. Hoodie up, baggy pants, even black gloves. And they moved strangely, too smooth. No shuffle, no sound, just a glide. I poked my head around the corner. No one was there. I called out, "Dean?" Silence. "Yo, Miguel?" Nothing. I stood there for a second, trying to shake off the unease. It was probably just my eyes playing tricks on me. Maybe a shadow. I went back to stocking shelves, trying to ignore the chill that had crept up my spine. Not even 5 minutes later, there was this crash, loud as hell, from somewhere down by sporting goods. It sounded like something heavy had hit the floor. My heart jumped and I took off in that direction, my steps echoing off the polished floors. When I got there, I found one of the bikes from the wall display lying on the ground. Not just tipped over, it had been ripped from the hook. But the hook wasn't broken. It was still firmly attached to the wall. That bike had been yanked down on purpose. I slowly lifted it and hung it back up, all the while feeling like someone was watching me. I kept glancing over my shoulder. The store was still dead quiet. Just the buzzing of the overhead lights and my own breathing. Then I heard it. A laugh. Not a regular laugh. It was short, sharp, like someone trying to hold it in but failing. The kind of laugh that crawls under your skin. It came from the paper goods aisle. Just behind me, I ran over, turned the corner fast, and stopped dead. There, standing at the far end of the aisle, was a man in all black. Same guy. Same gliding movement. Only this time he wasn't moving. He was just standing there, back to me. Head slightly turned, just enough so I could see part of his face. One eye, one cheek. His skin looked gray in the fluorescent light. And his eye wasn't right. It was open too wide, staring at nothing. He didn't say a word, just stood there. Then all at once he turned and bolted down the aisle to the left, fast. Too fast, I didn't chase him. I couldn't even move at first. My body just refused. When I finally unfroze, I sprinted to find Dean. I caught up with him near the kitchenware section. I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost because Dean immediately asked what was wrong. I told him everything, the guy in black, the laugh, the bike, all of it. Dean's face turned serious. "You're not messing with me right now?" "No, man. I swear." He nodded and told me to stick close to him. He hadn't seen Miguel in a while either, which didn't help the creeping dread in my stomach. We decided to find him together, but before we could go far, I felt that familiar pressure in my bladder. I told Dean I had to hit the bathroom. Bad. He gave me a weird look like he didn't want me to go alone. But I said I'd be quick. I wish I hadn't gone. The employee bathroom was in the back near the loading dock. No windows. Dim lights. It always had this musty smell like damp cardboard and old soap. I rushed into the stall, did the whole toilet paper nest thing, and sat down. I was trying to calm down, telling myself it was just some weirdo who snuck in. Nothing supernatural. Nothing dangerous. Then the door opened. I heard it. The creak of the hinge, the soft thud of it closing. I froze. I called out, "Hello?" Dean, no response. Then came the laugh again, closer this time. It echoed in the tile room, bouncing off the walls. My blood went cold. I looked through the stall crack, and there he was, one eye peeking in, unblinking, watching. He stepped closer, filling the entire crack so all I could see was that one wide eye. It was bloodshot. And smiling? No, that's crazy. Eyes don't smile, but this one did. Then came the whispering. Garbled words too low to understand, but it sounded like chanting, like he was saying the same thing over and over, but not in English. I was shaking. I fumbled for my phone and dialed Dean. As soon as he picked up, I didn't even let him talk. I just said loud and clear, "Dean, get to the bathroom now. Someone's in here." Still whispering, still staring. Then just as suddenly, the man turned and ran out. The door slammed. Dean showed up maybe 30 seconds later, out of breath. "I didn't see anyone," he said. "What happened?" I couldn't even speak at first. My mouth was dry. I just pointed at the stall door. He opened it slowly. Nothing. We found Miguel eventually, back in the freezer section, totally unaware of everything. When we told him, he thought we were joking. Said maybe we'd just seen a shadow or heard some pipes. But Dean and I knew better. We stuck together the rest of the shift. Every sound made us jump. Every flicker of the lights made us flinch. I texted our manager around 5 a.m. just before we clocked out. Told him the whole story. He didn't reply until the next afternoon. His message was short. "All footage from last night's shift is just static." Don't know why. No one turned the cameras off. That was it. Static, like nothing had ever happened. I never worked a night shift again after that. Neither did Dean. We both quit 2 weeks later. We still talk about it sometimes. And every time we do, we both remember that eye, watching from the crack. No one ever found out who the guy in black was, or what he was, but sometimes when it's really late and I can't sleep, I still hear that laugh. Short, sharp, too close. And I swear, it's still getting closer.